Welcome, everyone, to First Gen Gamers. Welcome back. I'm Jed Schaefer, my co-host, Mike Peterson. How you doing?
Pretty good. I may be lying, actually, considering the conversation we just had. We're talking about how crappy our weeks were.
Yeah, we were supposed to take this episode a week ago, and we're adults. Adult life happened.
Life is lifing right now, for sure. But again, as I said before, I'm grateful. Everybody's still alive. We're all happy and healthy, relatively. Sort of. I mean, we survived. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It is what it is.
Yep.
But yeah, no, glad to be back. Glad to be discussing the topic today. So for those who listened to the most previous episode, you're already abreast of what's going on. We are discussing controversies, not controversies.
So this week we're discussing games that had controversies,
Mm-hmm.
and the controversies really weren't worth the effort. And this is not a commentary on the quality of the game, although sometimes it will be. But these are games that just had massive controversies and, pissed off parents and pissed off groups and pissed off gamers. And when you really look at the game itself and the controversy surrounding it, you go, why?
Was it worth it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's funny? Not to jump on the bandwagon of, everybody's so offended, because I feel like that's such a cop out when it comes to like progress and understanding other people's intersections. However, it's funny because a lot of the controversies, not controversies, I found were so recent. People just seem to be so vocal because everybody has a soapbox, and not everybody should. Sometimes people be complaining about stuff that really they shouldn't be complaining about, but we'll get into it for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to get started with the second gen, of course, our normal starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any games from the second gen?
I mean, the thing that jumped immediately to mind, and I'm sure it jumped to your mind, and I'm not sure if you used it or not, was the video game industry crash caused supposedly by the E.T. game.
I didn't even think of that, but that's a good point.
Okay, so let me get my notes here. 1983, the video game industry crash supposedly caused by the worst game ever made, E.T. Now, I looked into the history of E.T. because I've heard this before, but I didn't really look into it. So I was researching it this week. Howard Scott Warshaw is the developer who made E.T. We all remember that urban legend that 12 million copies were buried in a landfill somewhere in a desert in New Mexico. That ended up being true, which was wild. Mm-hmm. When people found that, they're like, what? How often do you prove an urban legend, right?
To even add to that, so we've got a museum here in Detroit called the Henry Ford. It started off as a car museum, but it's got like all sorts of Americana history. So it's got everything from cars to trains to pop culture it's got the chair that Lincoln was sitting in when he was assassinated. And the last time I went there, which was 2019, they had games and dirt from the Alamogordo dig site.
That's awesome.
So I really got to see a game of E.T., a game of, I think, Centipede, like 2 or 3 different games. Because it wasn't just E.T. that got dumped in there. It was just a whole bunch of overstock that they had.
Dude, like going to museums as an older gentleman is so wild because like our art museum here in Indianapolis literally had a section with like old Macs and different types of iPods and this is called a Walkman.
And I'm like, how's life for that?
Why is my formative shit in a museum? Damn it. And it's surreal, slightly depressing, but also kind of cool. Like I like being able to look back and feeling like the things that I valued are valued as a piece of history.
Yeah.
It cuts both ways, But yeah, so Warshaw, he developed a lot of great acclaimed Atari games, including Yar's Revenge and Raiders of the Lost Ark. That probably got him the job, actually, of E.T. They called him up and they were like, you got 5 weeks from today, if you accept this job, to finish this game. Now, for context, an Atari game was typically developed between 5 to 6 months for a team of developers, not just one dude. So reviewing it, looking into it, I don't think it was actually the worst game ever made. It was kind of a miracle that it was even put together at all and ran. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the video game crash was already set up. This was like an iceberg, the tip that rose above the water. But when you look below, like it was happening. We weren't turning the ship around, right? So everybody needs a scapegoat. And I think the controversy around E.T. was way overblown. That's my pick.
I would agree with that. Yeah, it's not a good game by any means. But it's playable. It's far more playable than you would expect a game that was developed in 5 weeks to be.
Yeah, not only is it playable, but if you actually have a guide or understand what the design intent was at the time, there is a there's a method to the madness, so to speak, right? Yeah. But no, I'm not saying people should go out and play it. No, but is it the worst game ever made? Hardly.
No, not even close. No.
Yeah.
So, and if you haven't seen it, there's a documentary called Game Over, that has to do with E.T. and the video game crash and and it documents the Alamogordo dig.
Mm-hmm. And
Howard Scott Warshaw is in it. And you can tell, like, even I think it was made, mid last decade, 2014, 2015, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell that even at the time of the filming, he was still not salty, but I mean, he's still kind of, it hurts. The whole ET debacle hurts a little. And I can't blame him a minute for it because he got thrown an impossible hand to develop an entire game in a little over a month.
Yeah, and probably turned it in like fucking nailed it, y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, the tone I got from the interviews I read from him, because I didn't see the documentary, but I pulled some interviews. He just seemed incredulous. Like, are you guys serious?
Right.
You know, and I can't blame him, to be honest. No. I think he's a chill dude, and I mad respect for Warshaw.
Absolutely.
To be honest. Yeah,
absolutely. So my picks for the generation, I have a couple of honorable mentions, and they're games that I actually mentioned before in the horror game episode.
Okay.
And those would be the Halloween and Texas Chainsaw Massacre games.
Okay.
The controversy around those was obviously violence.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, there's violence in these games. When you play the games, they're so ludicrous. Texas Chainsaw Massacre effectively is a game of freeze tag. You play as something that's supposed to look like Leatherface, but you look more like Grimace wearing a pumpkin on his head. Yeah. And you run around a field and you touch victims with this thing that kind of looks like a knobby stick and they vanish.
Yeah. Not knobby stick. Yeah.
Yeah.
A mangled member, if you will, extending from the figure.
Yeah. Halloween.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You're playing as the babysitter, although none of the characters are named. The situation's never named. And if you're trying to save the kids, and if you get stabbed, your head explodes and into blood geyser. But then your character runs around like a chicken with its head cut off. Like, it's too comical to to cause so much controversy.
But Jed, think of the children, okay? What about the children?
Think about the children who didn't know this game existed because it was kept under the counter in the very few stores that he would even sell it.
But adults don't play video games, Jed.
I know. What adult would ever do that?
Only children snort cocaine off of pinball machines. Shut up.
Right. But that brings me to the pick for me.
Okay.
And that
wasn't even the pick. Okay.
No, those are my honorable mentions for this generation.
Okay.
The pick is another group of games. It is the group of erotic games published by Mystique / Playaround. So this would be Beat 'em and Eat 'em, Night on the Town, Bachelor Party, Burning Desire, and Cat House Blues.
Does General Custer's Revenge fall into there? Because that one actually does kind of suck.
That was also made by them. I'm excluding that one because that one deserves the controversy it got.
Yeah, that whole concept, like, we don't even need to discuss it. If you want to look it up, be my guest and be depressed about it. But that was gross. But yeah, continue.
But the rest of them are just fucking moronic. I mean, for one, they're all single screen arcade style games. Like Cat House Blues is basically memory. You got to watch where the prostitutes go into the houses, and then you got to remember, you got to get money and then go chase them down to get laid. Bachelor Party is, what if you took Breakout, made it horizontal, replaced the blocks with naked women, and replaced the ball with a naked man. Burning Desire is probably the weirdest one. It's a woman is caught between two pillars of fire, and you're in a helicopter, and you have to put the two fires out to be able to rescue her before she burns alive. And when you do that, you rappel down to save her, and she latches on to it with her mouth, and then you pull her up like that.
The most secure connection we can imagine, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, and very comfortable for him too.
Sure, yeah.
The reason I'm saying that the controversy of these games are overblown is that, okay, so one, they were sold almost nowhere. You could not get them at KB. You could not get them at Toys R Us. You could not get them at Sears.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
Oh God, yeah. That would be, the picketing would be out of this world. You had to hunt for these things. You had to find them. And they only sold them to adults. They were kept under wraps. They were kept in brown paper bags underneath the desk, so no one could get them except adults, and kids had no one knew that they even existed. But the thing that just makes them even all the dumber is that these were meant for an adult audience, and no adult is going to play these games and get horny.
I was going to say, does anybody JO to Atari graphics? Is that a thing?
I hope not.
I hope not too. That's desperate.
I've seen
you ain't got National Geographic. You ain't got nothing.
Right. Like at that age, I knew where my dad's Playboy stash was.
Right. You could see some boobies if you worked hard enough. You don't have to work that hard. Jeez.
No. And I've seen the gameplay footage of all of these. There's a great video.
I saw one where like a woman was eating cum that was raining from the sky. I don't know if that's one of them.
That's Beat 'em and Eat 'em. Guy is standing on the top of a building, and he's waxing his carrot, and women are.
And then you have to control
yeah.
Oh my God.
none of these games are even remotely sexy. They're not sexy if you're drunk and high at the same time. It's just, it's like the controversy was, what if kids see this and get sexually turned on? It's like, I get more sexually turned on by looking at a wall.
Yeah, no, I mean, a kid without any kind of context would have no idea what they were looking at. They would think that, that woman's drinking milk.
Right.
That is wild. I was thinking about Bachelor Party. You could flip that and not have to change much other than like where the sprites go, but you could literally make that like the Houston 500 just by making all of the girls guys and the guy a girl. Boom.
Actually, all of the Mystique erotica games, all of them had gender flip versions.
They swapped. Okay. There you go.
They did. Every single one of them. So
if you want to play Debbie Does Dallas in your headcanon, you can do it.
Yeah. The Beat 'em and Eat 'em game, instead of masturbating, it's a woman on top and she's expressing breast milk.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like there's even a gender flip version of Custer's Revenge.
Wow. That's we're this episode. We have to put a warning on this episode. We're just going there. We're talking.
Right.
This is an adult conversation we're having in the second gen. Yeah. I'd like to say it's only downhill from here, but I think this is the worst it gets. But no, I agree with you. That is a non-controversy. But again, you think about the time period and any kind of against quote unquote the norms, which is your right-wing kind of Christian ideology, like anything that was outside of that, got attacked viciously. So
yep.
What are you going to do? All right. So that's second gen. Wow. We had a lot of material. I didn't think we'd have that much, to be honest. I thought I was scraping the barrel with a video game crash. I thought I was going to double up on you. That's good. That's really good. Third gen. Good stuff here. What'd you get for third gen?
All right. So third gen, I'll do my honorable mentions real quick.
Okay.
First one is Devil World. It is the only Shigeru Miyamoto game to never get imported from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And it was done. It's a Pac-Man clone. The reason it wasn't imported, the reason the controversy was because there was religious iconography in it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've seen video of the gameplay, there's a little devil figure that kind of bears passing resemblance to the final boss in Ghosts and Goblins, like the version of Satan. He's got like the big blue spiky hair.
Yeah.
There's a couple of crosses. It's Nintendo of America had just this anal retentive fear of using religious iconography or any mention of religion whatsoever. And it's just, it was completely unwarranted. It was.
Well, what's wild? Later game companies would use this to their advantage by going, well, you better buy this soon and it's going to be pulled off the shelves because it's so controversial. They could have probably sold more units by pissing a few, small groups off.
Yep.
But, they did have a very succinct image for the company in mind. I mean, they always first and foremost thought of themselves as a toy company. Yep. So if anybody could be blamed for like the headcanon that video games are for children, I think Nintendo is at least a part of that because that's how they marketed.
Exactly.
They were like, we are children's toys.
Yep.
We make games for boys and girls. So I totally get it. But yeah, no, non-controversy for sure. All right. So that's the honorable mention.
Another honorable mention, Bubble Bath Babes. It's a puzzle shooter, kind of like Bust-A-Move or Buster Brothers. If you play enough, you get to see some boobs.
Yeah, I just deleted that off of, and several clones off of my Pandora. So
yeah, there is nudity and it's a heck of a lot more, human looking than the
less
nudity.
Ambiguous. Yeah.
It's less ambiguous and a little more human looking than the nudity that you'd see on Atari, but still it was an adult game. It was an unlicensed game. It was really hard to find. It's making a mountain out of a molehill that you can't even see.
Yeah. Yeah.
The last honorable mention is Chiller. It was a adaptation of an arcade game where, the whole purpose of the game is you're torturing people in a medieval dungeon. The arcade game has got excellent graphics, and it's an incredibly gory game. I mean, it is a very gory game. But the problem is the NES could not even come close to approximating the graphics. It looks like some first-year Commodore 64 kind of game. Like, it's butt ugly. And no one's getting horrified or disgusted or any kind of bad idea from a game that's barely more than stick figures.
Yeah, any attempt at any active graphics being gory or kind of, horror is going to fall flat just because of the limitations of the NES. I mean, you could put up, again, going back to, was it Bath Bubble Babes or whatever what it's called? When you put up an image, you can get detailed because you can do pixel art, right? And everybody knows if you put enough pixels together, even with the limited color palette, you can put a pretty detailed picture together. But when it comes to like things that activate and move, like it becomes a lot less detailed. And yeah, that's actually one of the ones I put down too. You use the NES Zapper, which I thought was interesting. The zap gun to shoot like and activate the torture for the chambers and the victims and stuff. Yeah,
I forgot about that. Yeah,
it's sadistic. Like I'll give people who were upset about it that, but at the same time, like you said, it wasn't marketed directly to children. It wasn't something that they could easily access. So again, it sounds like a running theme, to be honest.
Right,
homebrew adult games that nobody can get access to. Oh, the children.
So my number one game though for this generation, it's had two waves of controversy. One at the time.
Okay.
Self-manufactured controversy of that, and one more recent. And that game is called Taboo: The Sixth Sense.
Okay.
If you've never played it, Taboo: The Sixth Sense is a tarot card simulator. But that's it. That's all it is. It is just, and it's not even a very good tarot card simulator. If you've ever used tarot cards or know anything about them, there are multiple what are called arrays, the ways that you could deal out the cards. Depending on what your goal is, whether you want to learn about your love life or your life in general or your work or whatever. It has one array. It has the worst English versions of the card definitions. It does not give you the contextual definition of what one card means whenever you put it in a certain spot in the array, because its definition changes, if it's the first card or the fourth card or the seventh. It doesn't do any of that well. It is meant to be a party game, but it is an absolutely shitty party game because no one is going to have fun trying to read or understand any of it.
Might as well just get a tarot deck at that point.
Right. So what the controversy at the time was that the manufacturers and the distributors of the game were trying to lean into the fact that at the 80s, the satanic panic was all over the place.
Hit everything. Music, right. D&D, yeah.
Yeah. So they leaned into that with the marketing of this game. So
Smart.
I'm gonna read to you some of the stuff on that came in the game. This is
Okay.
from the back of the box.
All right.
Not intended for children under 14, and no mystical or magical claims are guaranteed or inferred.
Oh, okay. Thanks for clarifying.
From in the manual, no responsibility is accepted relating to taboo and any such effects, influences, or miracles incurred, inferred, divulged, resulting, or directly connected to taboo whatsoever. They were basically begging you to think that this thing was somehow really, truly oracular, that you were really tapping into
Right.
otherworldly arts, dark influences to tell the future.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work. Like, it sold for shit, but they were begging for controversy on this one. They were begging people to get outraged. And what ended up happening, the second wave of controversy, in recent times, the game has developed a creepypasta.
Oh.
So there is this ongoing rumor that, of course, no one can prove. There's no historical record of it anywhere, that there was a kid who used the game to divine the course of his life, and the game told him, you're going to die soon, very soon. And then he proceeded to die very soon, and the manufacturers of the game had to take the game off the market, which is why it was pulled. Which,
And
no,
not
it
because
wasn't.
it was just a crap game. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, the controversy for that game is basically non-existent because it was a shitty game that tried to lean in on moral panic that by that point really didn't exist much.
Yeah. Or if it did, it wouldn't latch on to something that nobody really cared about. Like, that's the other thing. Like, that kind of marketing strategy only works if you have something that people actually want to check out.
Right.
So from marketing strategy to fan fiction, love it. Good stuff.
And so what'd you have for the generation?
Well, aside from Chiller, I thought about two things. There was the Tengen Tetris, which I think is like the most famous one, where Tengen produced it without actually having the complete rights, and then the giant lawsuit that followed. It was pulled from shelves. Hundreds of thousands of copies were destroyed. Eventually, obviously, things settled down, and Tetris persisted.
Yes.
And again, an example of a good game that, despite any controversy that might set it back, it pulls through. So, and then the other one was when Universal Studios sued Nintendo over Donkey Kong.
Oh, dear God. I forgot about that.
Yeah, an infringement on their rights to the movie King Kong and the King Kong character. Their strategy was just to intimidate Nintendo into settling, but Nintendo was like, and then whoosh, they put down John Kirby, who successfully defends the case, proving the Universal's copyright claim was bogus, and subsequently giving us the name of a beloved character in Nintendo later on, named after that lawyer, Kirby. So,
oh wow, I had no idea about that.
Yeah. Masahiro Sakurai, I think out of just, appreciation of the fact that John Kirby, and it wasn't just him, there were other lawyers on the case, but he's the one that gets attributed because of his name. Kirby is named Kirby because of the lawyer that successfully defended Nintendo against the Universal, the scam suit, and try to get money out of Nintendo.
Fair enough.
So yeah, that was a controversy that was not a controversy because there's no reason to think that Donkey Kong had anything to do with King Kong, to be honest.
Right. They're not, there's nothing similar. I mean, yeah, they're both primates.
Yeah, they're monkeys that grab a woman. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So yeah, that's it for third gen for me. We can go ahead and move on to fourth gen. What you got? These are interesting, by the way. I'm learning some stuff today.
All right. So for fourth gen, only two honorable mentions. One is from the TurboGrafx 16.
Okay.
It is a game called Devil Crush. It's a pinball game. It's a pretty good pinball game for a video pinball game. It got some controversy because, unlike Nintendo, NEC just didn't give a damn, and they were going to put anything they wanted into the game, and they put some satanic imagery in there. There was a pentagram, some pictures of a more traditional red-faced horned devil, and some people got upset, and it's like it's. You saw the same thing on the cover of a Motley Crue album, for crying out loud. It wasn't that bad, and it was a pinball game. It wasn't like you were worshiping the devil in the game. It was just an occult-themed pinball game.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, anything that is the devil.
Right.
We're scared.
The other honorable mention, I didn't want to put it on here because it's so obvious, but at the same time, it's obvious for a reason. Night Trap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what the entire controversy of, oh my God, it's violence against women. You're trying to stop the violence against women. That's the whole purpose of the game. You are
also, have you played the game? The goofy Goonie guys that like walk around like, whoa.
Right.
It's so stupid. I mean, there were movies out at the time before and after that were way worse, but okay.
Right. It was absolutely preposterous that got made a big deal of. There were much worse games.
It honestly reminded me of like a Nickelodeon game show, like Legend of the Hidden Temple or something, because like a trap would activate and then like steam would blow out artificially and somebody would fall back or whatever, like, or like trapdoors and weird, stupid shit, like to either protect or get the women or whatever. It was just so silly. The fact that there was any controversy at all. It's just people saw a picture, they heard the premise, they went off.
Yep.
So,
but my number one game for that generation is a game that gets forgotten, and for good reason.
Okay.
It's a game for the Sega Genesis and was also on a couple of, I know it was on the Amiga and a couple of other PCs. It's called Techno Cop.
Okay.
Techno Cop is a combination side-scrolling shooter and driving game. So you're a cop. You have to drive to these locations. The driving is dull and lifeless. The whole game is dull and lifeless, to be honest. Its claim to fame was the controversy, which was completely overblown. So you drive to the location, and that's when the side-scrolling comes up. You can arrest the main suspects, but the goons that you have to face, you have to shoot down. And when you shoot them down, apparently your bullets either have time bombs or battery acid in them. I'm not sure, because once you shoot a goon 2 or 3 times, have you ever seen RoboCop?
Yeah, great movie.
You know that scene where the guy crashes into the toxic waste and he's like all melting and everything, and then he gets hit by the car and he kind of just explodes into goo?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you shoot the goons. They just kind of explode into a pile of goo.
Okay.
And that got everyone freaking out. It was it was, oh my God, there's blood and they explode, and like,
yeah,
you've seen shit like this before. It's not even. I can understand the controversy around Mortal Kombat because it was digitized graphics. It was real looking, even though the violence was cartoonish.
Yeah,
it was real people doing it. So we had never seen something like that before. Techno Cop looked like a Nintendo, like an NES game. It was the graphics were barely better than Narc. They were just corny, and the violence was so cartoonish and stupid. It was just ridiculous that, like, the fact that you haven't even that you went, when I said Techno Cop, that just shows how much the legacy of its violence and the controversy around it mattered, because almost no one remembers it.
Yeah, I never heard of it. I mean, it's funny when you were talking about it, I vaguely remember like a shitty looking game where people kind of explode when you shoot them, but I don't know if it's the same game or not. But yeah, like I couldn't tell you one thing or another about Techno Cop. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I got. What about you?
Well, as far as honorable mentions go, there was a controversy around a game called Fighter's History. Capcom sued Data East on the grounds that their fighting game blatantly copied Street Fighter 2. Just based off the concept and the characters, but it was thrown out, and Fighter's History is a thing now. So, again, it's just one game being like, wait a second, we invented the concept of normal boots. You can't have normal boots as well. But the actual controversy for 4th gen, I went to the Game Boy on this one. Do you remember a thing called Lavender Town Syndrome?
It sort of rings a bell.
It's probably going to come a little clearer once I start explaining it. There was an urban legend about the original release of Pokemon Red and Green, where certain tones in the Lavender Town theme would cause children to unalive themselves. Yeah. in Japan. And it never happened, but it was one of those urban legends that went around, and everybody's just like, oh, you got to be careful about these games. I mean, again, there was enough satanic panic around Pokemon just because for I think hardcore evangelists who, are Bible literalists, when you even say the word evolution, they just prick up.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, you summon these monsters from your pocket and you're a master. Don't trust anyone that makes your children think they're the masters of anything. You should beat them. So Lavender Town Syndrome kind of played into the mythos of there's something being otherworldly. And Lavender Town is already like a scary themed town because it's where the Pokemon Cemetery is. So it makes sense why a rumor like this would come up, but there's no documented case of anyone ever hearing that song and with any kind of recency then also unaliving themselves. Never happened.
It also kind of plays off of the remnants of the 80s, the backmasking controversies that like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Wasp of putting satan or suicidal suggestions.
You gotta play the record backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
My favorite bit in a shitty movie. You ever seen Little Nicky?
No, I have not.
Little Nicky is Adam Sandler playing Satan's son. And I'm not going to talk about the plot. It's stupid. It's dumb if you're like really high and you're not discerning, but it's such a dumb movie. I loved it when I was 15. There's a part where Little Nicky, he's hanging out with some metalheads, right? And the guy's like, Nicky, listen to this. And like, so he starts playing an Ozzy Osbourne record backwards. It's what do you think the Ozman's saying there? And Little Nicky's like, nothing, but check this shit out. He puts in Chicago and he plays Chicago backwards. It's like, I command you in the name of Lucifer to spread the blood of the innocent. And the guy's like, holy shit, Chicago's fucking awesome. Hands down, one of my favorite bits.
I remember when Judas Priest got taken to court for this.
Oh my God.
For backmasking because some woman, her son decided to unalive himself, and she blamed Judas Priest and said that they had put messages and suggestions doing that. And Rob Halford, the lead singer, on the steps of the courthouse, I think it was, he goes, why would we do that? We'd be killing our customers.
Right.
Same thing with Lavender Town Syndrome. Why would they put a note or a tone or any type of subliminal thing that would be in the game and thin out their customer base?
Because it's not about capitalism in these people's minds. It's about spiritual warfare, and it's not the dollars you make, it's the souls you steal. It doesn't make sense to any person who has any kind of sense in their head, but what are you going to do?
Right.
All right. 5th gen. I didn't have a ton for this, so I'll go ahead and just rattle mine off real quick.
Okay.
The only thing I could think of was in regards to, and again, there's probably a ton, but this is just what came to mind. Perfect Dark. It was the first M-rated game published by Nintendo. Critics were like talking about, oh, Perfect Dark could popularize mature games. It's a kid-friendly console. Oh, it's going to be a dangerous place for babies. What are we going to do? Nothing happened. It was fine.
Right.
Everybody moved on. But yeah, that I remember people just doomsaying about Perfect Dark and it being the N64. Non-controversy.
Absolutely.
Yep. What you got?
Okay, so first honorable mention is Thrill Kill.
Okay.
Thrill Kill it was never even actually released. You can now go out and get the ISO image.
Okay.
I can't remember who it was developed by. I should have looked that up, but it ended up getting bought by EA close to the finish line. They carried the development all the way to the end, and then for some reason decided to can it. Thrill Kill was going to be, think of a PlayStation 1 era version of Power Stone. So kind of like a multiplayer arena fighter, but themed like Mortal Kombat.
Okay. Dope. Sounds cool. I'd play that shit. Yeah, I'm going to go find that today.
and that was it. That's the whole basis of the game. And apparently the violence in it was just, oh my God, it's so bad that we have to can this game because violence. And it's, like I said, it's a PlayStation 1 era game violent. It's nothing you haven't seen before. It did not need to be canceled. In a generation where there were games like the Mortal Kombat games and Carmageddon and Postal, Thrill Kill was...
Twisted Metal, you know?
Twisted Metal, yeah. Thrill Kill was way down the line of offensive content.
Yeah, and we're a whole gen away from the creation of the ESRB, which again, capitalism, it was an institution, like an inner self-regulating thing, because it's made up of people who have vested interest in the financial success of video games, just to stop the government from regulating them themselves, which I totally get. But again, there are protections put in place. Kids just can't go into the store. In fact, name a kid who was underage during the 5th and the 6th gen that doesn't have some kind of horror story about going into a game store and almost getting a copy of God of War or Grand Theft Auto, but that douchebag clerk behind the counter at GameStop being like, "Hey mom, I just want to let you know this game that your kid's trying to get, it's got boobies." So I don't know.
Yep.
You know,
I mean, hey, I hate to say it, I was that douchebag clerk because we were told when I worked at Software Etc. from 97 to 99. So that was prime.
How dare you?
Prime generation. That was GTA, that was Carmageddon, that was Twisted Metal, that was all those games.
It never happened to me, luckily, because I was aged just when that started being like a thing, especially with Grand Theft Auto 3. But yeah, there are so many people like in their 30s right now that have a horror story about a guy that was like, "Hey mom, come here." No, not on my watch.
And I was told by my manager, absolutely do not sell M-rated games to anyone below 17. And if they're a teen, if it's a T-rated game, use your best judgment, because the last thing we want is some pissed off mom coming in here and blowing us up.
You know what? From that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. I still have to take up for the kids though. Who doesn't want to play God of War when you're 12? Come on.
Right. I can't tell you how many times, we go, "Sorry, kid, we can't sell you Grand Theft Auto. You're 12.
Yeah.
You're below the rating." So he'd turn around, he'd go talk to mom. Mom would come over and go.
And then she'd buy it anyways. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. At least half the time.
And at that point, it's out of your hands. And you have to wonder, I had a mom who literally, it was a Satanic Panic style mom, so I definitely am sensitive to this. Like, I would get something edgelord and crazy when I was 13, like a cross made out of skulls at Spencer, like, "Oh, this is rad." She's like, "Take that back. You ain't wearing that because devil." I'm like, "Aw." But at the same time, you have the parents who just do not examine anything that their kids watch. And then you see how those kids turn out. Me, I walk a line. Like, I don't want to judge other parents, but what I do is I err on the side of caution with sex, because I feel like that's a conversation they need to come to me about. You know what I mean? Or if I see them start to get curious, I'd rather be more clinical about it than have them watch something that's exploitative. I feel like that's for somebody who's sexually mature. When it comes to violence, again, it's a case by case. But I've watched I've watched The Ring with my kid when he was like 7, and he drew Kirby cartoons about it. He thought it was funny. It was gnarly, and there's a part that scared him. It scared me too. With the face in the closet. We're both like, that sucks. But he was with me, and when I can tell he's scared, because we're together, we can talk about it. We can watch the behind the scenes. He can see how it was made and how fake it is. And, he doesn't have nightmares, and he's a pretty chill dude. So I feel like if you're there with your kids and you spend time with them, if you have time to spend with them, and you can have those experiences with them and build that bond and that trust, they're going to be able to be a little bit more prepared and mature when these situations come up when you're not around, because they're going to come up.
Right.
They're going to go to that friend's house with that mom who bought the damn game. You know what I mean? Right. You can't do anything about that.
Right.
So...
All right, so next, get the other honorable mention that I have is Mario Party.
Okay.
This got a class action lawsuit filed against Nintendo because of the tug of war game, where you have to rotate the stick in order to win.
Okay.
And a lot of people, rather than the intent, which was to use your thumb to rotate the stick, they used the palm of their hand, so that way they could do it a lot faster.
That's weird, but okay.
And because of the materials that the stick were made out of, the hard plastic and the texturing.
Yeah, the grooves. I remember.
That was actually causing wear and tear and open wounds in the palms of people's hands.
Oh my God.
So Nintendo solved the problem and settled the lawsuit by anyone who wanted one could file a claim and they could get this fingerless glove kind of. It was a glove. And the controversy is, or the non-controversy of the fact of the game is, just play with your fucking thumbs.
Yeah, like some numbskull going, I'm bleeding. Let me keep going. Like, do you need to win the game that bad? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's Mario Party. Just you're probably going to get screwed by by Bowser and lose all your stars anyway, because that's how the games always go. But
yeah, I should go without saying. But if you're damaging your hands playing a game, you're doing it wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's on you. That's not Nintendo's fault or anyone else's fault. You are the idiot who's making that choice.
Yeah, the controller's not made out of knives. Come on, get out of here.
Right.
That's a good one. I never heard of that. That's wild.
But my number one pick for the gen is a game from the 3DO.
Okay.
Plumbers Don't Wear Ties.
I remember this game. It's similar to Night Trap, but it actually did have boobies.
It did if you put in a code.
Oh, you had to put in a code. Okay.
Yeah. If you didn't put in a code, she would just be in her bra and you wouldn't see any nudity, either male or female.
Okay.
So this game did have an age rating. It was not sold to kids under 17.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to be this romantic adventure where you're trying to make this guy and this girl, me, and fall in love. But it was kind of a choose your own adventure kind of story.
Yeah. Early American dating game, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think we had too many of those. It was mainly a Japan thing. Yeah.
And it was sold as a full motion game. It was not. There was about a minute and a half's worth of full motion at the very start.
It was mostly stills, right?
Yeah. It was a dating sim told by way of a slideshow.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a surrealist slideshow as well. Like there's parts where there's a narrator who will pop in and read the choices for you. And the narrator is this obnoxious dick that's kind of wearing this weird suit. I think it has question marks all over it or something. And at one point, he wears a chicken mask. And at another point, he wears a fighter's helmet. And then, or a pilot's helmet. And then all of a sudden, another narrator, this woman in a karate gi shows up and kicks his ass and takes over. And then he comes back with an assault rifle and murders her and takes over the narration again. It's the weirdest. There's a whole section towards the end where they left outtakes in on purpose. And they even matched up pictures of the actors flubbing their lines and laughing about it, and they integrated into the game. So whatever adult content, whatever sexual content is to be had in there is so buried in the fact that this unplayable, unfun, moronic, surrealist Dada art project is just it's not fun. It's not sexy. It's not anything. And to top it all off, it was buried on the 3DO.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anyone who had a 3DO at the time?
I do not.
I've met one person.
Yeah.
Just one who had a 3DO.
And all they played was Eternal Champions. I don't know. Was that on 3DO or was that on something else?
That was on Genesis.
Okay. Well, no. There was a CD version of Eternal Champions. Maybe it was Sega CD or Jaguar. Okay. It was okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. The good games on 3DO were like Wing Commander 3 and Road Rash.
Yeah. Also on Genesis, at least with Road Rash.
Street Fighter. They had a really good version of Street Fighter on there. Street Fighter 2.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, that is a non-controversy. Let's move on to the 6th gen. Okay. I had a few here. What do you have?
All right. So honorable mentions, GTA San Andreas. The hot coffee thing.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
It was buried in, you couldn't access it in the console version.
You had to cheat. Yeah.
Yeah. You could access it by hacking the PC version. It was fully clothed sex for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And what is completely laughable to me was a realization that I had about a week ago. So this is 6th gen, and you've got a fully clothed sex scene that you can't find, that you can't access, that made everyone freak out. The next generation had Ride to Hell Retribution, which has sex mini games that you have to play
Mm-hmm.
fully clothed.
Yep.
No one said a damn word.
In fact, also in that next generation, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out on 360, and you literally have to film a woman who is having sex with a man for an extended period of time. Like, and arguably there's more nudity because like her skirt is raised up, you know what I mean? But like, like you have like I think it's called paparazzi or something like that. It's a Franklin mission. I remember because I was playing Grand Theft Auto with my first son in the room at one time, and again, violence, whatever. But then I started doing the mission and I was like, oh, this is, I might have to shut this off. Cause my kid like looked over, I think he was 2 at the time, and he was like, what is this? And I'm like, I'm awakening things. No, not yet. So it's wild. Like what gets caught. Red Dead Redemption 2, I think had a sex scene, if I recall. And I think it was nude actually, if I recall. Yeah.
And no one said a word, but for some reason, San Andreas is big problem.
Hot coffee.
The other 2 honorable mentions can be lumped together. One of them is BMX Triple X or BMXXX. I'm not really sure how to say it.
I remember that. I think I have a copy for GameCube, actually.
Yeah. Topless bike riding.
Yeah. Cool.
Wow. Whoa,
yeah, mediocre bike riding at that.
Right.
But yeah.
And the other one is Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball. Again, boobs. And even dumber is that there were so many people who were outraged about, oh my God, this is just a swimsuit simulator. This is just watching, girls with big boobs bounce up and down. Have you played the Dead or Alive fighting games? There's there's an option slider for bounciness.
Yeah, man. Nobody does horny quite like Japan. They are thirsty.
Like if you were surprised about the sexual content of DOA Extreme Beach Volleyball, you haven't been paying attention to the core franchise.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the number one game for me this generation, and I'm betting it's going to be the number one game for you as well, is Bully. I said it, I think, in
we alluded
to previous
it.
Game. Yeah. I when it came out, I jokingly dismissed it as Grand Theft Bike. It is not. It is an awesome game. It is fun. Yeah. But the controversies around it, one, everyone assumed that it was promoting bullying. It was not. It was not even close.
Yeah.
You were solving problems. There were friends that you stuck up for. That name saddled it with a reputation it did not deserve.
Well, that, and plus the fact that it was made by Rockstar. Jack Thompson went on. For those who don't know, Jack Thompson, as far as non-controversies, was this lawyer who made it his mission to try to get video games removed or heavily censored. Like, it was just like a thing. And it was a grift, clearly.
Oh, yeah.
Because he didn't do any research, and he just saw the word bully and Rockstar and ran with it. Yep. And had no idea what was going on in the game. So, yeah.
And the other part of the game that was controversial was that there's a scene where you can make your main character kiss another boy.
Yeah. Not even a scene. Like, you could just on command, because for those who aren't familiar with Bully, there's a mechanic where you can have quote unquote like girlfriends. Like, you can give, I think it's even part of a mission to give one of the girls chocolates or candy, and she starts making out with you. And then from then on, if you pick a flower and give it to a girl, eventually she'll like you, and then you have a prompt to be able to kiss her. Well, I don't know if it was an original Bully. It sounds like it might have been, but I played the Scholarship Edition on 360. There was one boy who was gay in the school, and if you wanted to, you could kiss him as well.
Yeah.
Big whoop.
And exactly. That is the best way to summarize the non-controversy. That big whoop.
And I totally kissed him. I'm a straight guy. Kiss the boy, because I'm role playing as Jimmy Hopkins. Don't care. Jimmy, kiss anybody.
Exactly.
Jimmy is down.
Yep.
Jimmy, love everyone.
Right.
All right. Yeah, I actually mentioned Bully 2. I was like, what's funny to me is in the same generation that we got Persona 3, something Jack Thompson really could have got up in arms about. Persona 3, for those who aren't familiar with the Persona franchise, you have these kind of like Pokemon, but they're inside of you. They're like these spirits that you can invoke outside of you. And every Persona game has a different way that you summon them. And the spirits themselves can be controversial because they pull from religious figures from all religions, including Christianity. So you can literally summon Beelzebub, Satan, Lucifer, all the big hitters. as like your personal like attacker in a battle, right? But the thing that was wild about Persona 3, that is in order to quote unquote evoke these personas, you had this evoker which looked just like a gun. It was just a handgun, and you shot yourself in the head, and that's how you didn't actually, there was no bullets, so you didn't actually kill yourself, but the imagery, like you put a gun to your head and you pull the trigger, and that's how the personas get summoned. And I just thought that was the wildest thing. And I was like, how is nobody even talking about this? Maybe they did, but I didn't see a whole lot of hubbub, not near as much for Bully, which never even came close, to be honest. So interesting. I got a couple I can mention then before I get to a big one. So Manhunt got blamed for a murder of a kid in the UK. Sensationalist news taking advantage of grieving parents who are not thinking straight. You know what I mean? Being like, well, the kid who killed our kid was playing Manhunt. And again, Manhunt is about being kidnapped and then being put basically in a death like competition with other murderers and scumbags. Like, you're not just killing innocent people. And it is violent. Like, don't get me wrong, but the main character like is not choosing to do this. They're being forced, and they are basically killing people who would kill them without a second thought. So regular old video game combat in my mind. Stubbs the Zombie, Joe Lieberman led a crusade in Congress against this game because he said it encouraged cannibalism.
What?
Yes, a zombie game. Because we all know that like any one of us could become a zombie one day and be cannibalists. So,
and he's aware that that's not the first piece of zombie fiction ever, right?
Dude,
it kind of dates back a few decades.
Yeah, man. It's back as far back as the 60s, as far as I could tell. And even then, like, the concept itself has been, around. I mean, it's in the Bible all over the place. You kidding me? So anyways, getting past that, speaking of the Bible Chronicles, the Call of Abraham. You ever heard of that game?
No.
So Phoenix Interactive Studios were trying to kickstart a game called Bible Chronicles: The Call of Abraham. Kind of sounded interesting because it was basically an adventure game about a character in the Bible, which I would play, to be honest, because I'm familiar with the lore because I grew up Christian. So I would literally be interested, not offended, in like playing some of the stories in the Bible because some of them are kind of gnarly. But their Kickstarter failed, and they blamed like Satan in Grand Theft Auto and other games because they're just the enemy won't let them fund their shitty game, I guess. I don't know. So they raised a big fuss about that. It was a non-controversy. Hardly anybody heard about it, but they tried so hard. But the biggest for me in that generation, aside from Bully, controversy, not controversy, was, and I just wrote one word in this note. That's all I had to write. Zelda.
Oh,
Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Cell shaded Link. People were pissed.
Yeah.
This one's on the gamers.
Yeah.
They were mad because, quote unquote, it wasn't a realistic Link. Although if you look at the concept footage for what the realistic Link was at the time, it looks terrible. It does not look realistic. But,
No.
Graphics being what they were, that doesn't hold up. The concept art everybody wanted. Meanwhile, Wind Waker is one of the most beautiful Zelda games that has ever existed. Its transference to HD was impeccable. It looks great either on GameCube or the Wii U. I played it at the time. I thought it was amazing. People were just mad. They didn't like the cell shaded. And I get it because there was this not exactly completely undeserved rumor that cell shading was replacing the art style in a lot of games because it was easier graphically and it was easier to program to cell shade, right?
Right.
And that's true. There were a lot of crappy developers that were using it as a crutch or a get around for actually doing work, but not Nintendo. No, they did it right. The cell shading in Wind Waker is top notch, and that's why it holds up. And it's an amazing art style if done right. So
Yeah.
not a controversy. Calm down.
No, not even.
All right. Woo.
Right. 7th gen.
We're almost at an hour. We're rocking it. 7th gen. Let's do it.
7th gen. So, my honorable mentions. First is a game called Fat Princess.
Remember that. Yeah.
This, it got, oh, you're making fun of fat people. Oh, you're going to give girls body issues. Like, okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that help, and I'm not disputing the fact that there are influences in the media that do contribute to negative body issues and body shaming and stuff like that, especially for women. That is prevalent. It is borderline inescapable. Fat Princess was not in any way, shape, or form trying to do that. It was not, the Victoria's Secret catalog where every girl, the perfect girl is 34, 22, 34. It was not doing that at all. It was just a silly Japanese game. It was not a commentary on body issues.
I will say, not to say that this is a non-controversy or it isn't a non-controversy, but I will say that there is an argument to be made about the objectification of women because the princess in this game literally has zero agency. She is an object. The object of the game is to feed her so much cake that she cannot be lifted, or it's hard to carry her. Like, she gets slower and slower because the object is the other team has to like kidnap the princess and bring them over to their side. So you want to make your princess as heavy and morbidly obese as possible so that way she cannot be moved. The concept itself is silly and cartoony, but it does not exist in a vacuum. It does exist in a world where the video game industry, even in the 7th gen, was largely prevalent with problematic depictions of the objectification of women. There wasn't a crime game or like a gritty shooter where you wouldn't go to some kind of district where every woman, like NPC, their only line was, "Hey baby, I'll give it to you for free." That was it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get why people were pissed, but at the same time, it sucks that something interesting like that, like concept wise, can't exist. So I don't think it's a huge controversy, and I'd be interested to see the statistics on how many people were like, "Oh man, I feel bad because I eat cake and no one can move me to the other castle." Like, I get it. But I will say that, like, I lend a sympathetic ear to people who are just sick of seeing like women being literally used as objects in video games. The landscape now, I feel like that game would slot in just fine just because of all the diversity. But back then, I can see both sides. You know what I mean?
Right. And I'm not taking anything away from that. It's more just that it's not, I don't think it was contributing to the dialogue the way that the people who were angry about the game think that it was contributing to the dialogue.
Yeah, squeaky wheels, man.
Yeah.
And you want to get the grease.
Yeah. And it also was a niche game. I mean, this is the kind of game that would appeal to people who like Katamari Damacy or those weird, eccentric Japanese import,
or like
kind
tower
of games.
defense, or like little mini games, like pixel junk stuff like that. Yeah, I get you.
This was not appealing to your average Call of Duty fan,
right?
So they overestimated the game's reach.
Yeah.
Mad World. Oh my God! Violence on a Nintendo console.
Here we go again.
If I rolled my eyes any harder, I'd look like a slot machine.
Yeah.
And that's all I need to really say about it. Here, you said it. Here we go again.
Yep.
The other honorable mention is Little Big Planet. That got 2 waves of controversy about the same damn thing. There was music that was in one of the levels that used a vocal performance that some people interpreted as using verses from the Quran. And that pissed a lot of people off because how dare you use text from a religious book as background music. So then Sony issued an update to the game that removed the vocal performance of the music, and that pissed people off because how dare you take music out that is celebrating the Quran? Like,
oh dear.
Either way, it's just friggin' music it's background music in a game. It's not really worth that much. I mean, it wasn't making fun of the Quran. It wasn't making fun of Islamic beliefs. It was just music.
Yeah.
Should they have probably picked a different vocal track? Yeah, probably. But
that kind of reminds me, I feel like in Ocarina of Time, there was a chant. Was it the Water Temple? There was a dungeon that had a chant that was also deemed religious. Like they pulled actual religious chants, I guess, for the track. I can't remember exactly.
I don't remember which temple either. Yeah.
But some kind of Eastern religion. And people were like, "Oh, don't do that." And again, I mean, it's easy for me to dismiss religion because my context is mostly Western religions, and they are so, not to try to criticize or piss anybody off out there, but Western religions tend to be very judgmental and pushy. They tend to be like, we don't only want to live our way. We want everyone else to live our way. Or if they live their way, we don't want to see it, and they don't get platformed, and they don't get respected. And we also want to influence laws. That's where I take issue.
Yep.
Fundamental differences aside, as far as, why we're here and how I see my fellow man, that's a discussion for another day. The main issue is just the pushiness and how they're trying to take people's rights. You know what I mean? Just go, you live the way I live, or else.
Yeah.
Pushing that aside, Eastern religions are a lot more chill. Eastern religions, I feel like, anything that's not Abrahamic, it's a lot more about philosophy. It's a lot more golden rule-ish, if you will. So when they're like, hey, this is offensive, I tend to have a little bit more sympathy. So again, I agree with you that this is a weird controversy because, half people are like, we love it. Half people are like, we hate it. So it's very confusing. Best to avoid it altogether, but not really that big of a deal when you break it down. Yeah. So,
but my number one pick for this generation is another game that did not release in America because of the controversy around it, and it didn't need to have controversy. It was called We Dare.
We Dare. Okay.
It was a mini game compilation for the Wii. And the idea behind it was, this is the mini game compilation for adults.
Ooh,
saucy.
Spencer's.
The trailers had imagery of women dancing around poles. There was one where there was a woman sitting on a couch, and the Wii remote had been stuffed into the back pocket of the guy, and he was laying across her lap, and she was spanking him. So it was all supposed to be these saucy, sexy mini games, and it was so controversial. It was so, oh my gosh, we can't put this out in America. It only came out in Europe. If you've seen the minigame compilation, you'll know that this thing is about as sexy as an episode of iCarly.
Okay.
Yeah. This has maybe one, maybe two adult-themed games. One of them is the spanking game.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, you don't actually have to put someone it in their back pocket if you really, want to just cheese the mechanic. The stripping... There is no stripping game. There is no pole dancing game. Most of them are mini games that you would find in any other mini game compilation. There is just there's no overt sexual content to this game whatsoever. So the controversy is such a non-controversy because the game didn't even live up to its own hype.
Interesting. Yeah, I never even heard of it. Wow. Okay. I had a few. I'll try to go through them quickly because we're getting towards the end here. Skullgirls. Skullgirls, the developer, they decided to honor one of their more supportive and talented players in the player base. Their name was Sonic Fox. They got a cameo in one of the arenas. The problem was that Sonic Fox is gay, non-binary, a furry, and they're completely unapologetic about that. And a lot of people got worked up about their inclusion in the game. So much, in fact, that it got review bombed, and people suggested like trying to mod it or edit it to toggle to remove the cameo. So again, it's just like, person who isn't straight and white and hetero and cis exists, and they're showing it to me. Don't shove that down my throat. And then, so I think something similar happened with James Stephanie Sterling putting a bio in Vampire Survivors, and people modded it out like within minutes. It was ridiculous. I can't stand it when people find the mere existence of other people that are not like them to be political and somehow offensive. Like, calm down. It's not that deep. Your mom hates this game. The ads for Dead Space. It's like, your mom hates this game. Your mom hates it because it's violent. And the whole marketing ploy Dead Space tried to like drum up controversy so people would buy Dead Space. You don't need to do that. Dead Space is already good. Stop it.
It reminds me of the marketing campaign also behind Dante's Inferno.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, I mean, it was a few games that generation. Like, oh, your mom is going to be offended. So, should probably buy it. Okay. Let's see. Portal 2. Portal 2 was teasing Chell about being adopted, and a father took issue with that. GLaDOS criticizes the antagonist, I guess his name was Wheatley, for making the adoption joke in the same scene that he was complaining about, just saying it was lame. News outlets just cut that part out and just show the clips about the tasteless joke, basically kind of making it seem like, you know, they were pushing back, saying that, like, you know, we're not against adoption. We said it was lame. So some people are like, that's lampshading. You know, like, you can't make a joke and go, isn't that a stupid joke? But you still made the joke. And other folks are like, you know, no, it's fine. So I don't think it's a huge controversy. At the end of the day, if somebody has humor that you don't agree with in a game, just don't play the game. You know,
Right.
Like, I get, like, speaking up about it, but the way it was overblown and again sensationalized by the news, non-controversy.
Absolutely.
Mass Effect's ending. This is another one on the gamers. People were so pissed about Mass Effect's ending, so much in fact that something that hasn't happened in my lifetime up to that point, as far as I can recall, the developers actually changed it in response to the fan backlash.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I hadn't even seen the ending at that point. I don't think I played Mass Effect until a few years later, because I was on the Mass Effect train, the first and the second game. Played them immediately, platinumed them, or in this case 100% it because they were on Xbox. Loved it to death. But then everything I heard about Mass Effect 3 and all the backlash and controversy got me not to play it, you know? And it wasn't even actually that big of a deal. Was it a bit of a letdown? Yeah, but it was going to be hard to stick the landing either way, and I still enjoyed the game for what it was.
Yeah, I to full extent, I've only played a little bit of the first Mass Effect game. I've not gone through all three of them, but I do remember all the backlash. And I remember hearing about Mass Effect and how player choice matters so much. You can really develop your character. You can be 100% asshole. You could be 100% saint. You could be in the middle, and it really dictated your choices, and those choices carried over. You get this, the save file carried over. It took what you did in 1 and applied it to 2 and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And I remember hearing that, and 3 is coming up, and how are they going to do the endings? There's going to have to be so many endings. And I was sitting here going, there can't be.
Yeah.
You are convincing yourself that they are going to be able to produce 15, 20, 50 different endings to match everyone's 100% good, 100% evil, and varying degrees in between. They can't do that.
There's got to be like an XY graph that kind of crosses and descends, where the more graphics you have, the less choices you can really actually have impact the ending. Like if it was an older or like a 2D or a retro demake, I feel like you could have more stuff because the manpower and asset making that goes into that is less.
Yeah.
But because this was a big budget AAA game, there wasn't a whole lot of variance. But the whole pick your color thing at the end, I see where people were pissed, but at the same time, you kind of had to see it coming a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as much as they tout the whole, you can be good or bad or anything in between, you really were incentivized to only be all good or all bad. Being in between was never optimal, and few games really take that moral relativity concept to a more realistic or cool conclusion. It literally is just be decent or be a dick. You can't be something in between and still take full advantage of the choices that you make and how it advances your story. I've tried that before, like punching reporters, but also being nice to aliens. It doesn't really work. So, Kojima getting fired from Konami. That was blown up to be this big conspiracy, like, oh, they're trying to silence this auteur. And don't get me wrong, I love Kojima, but it takes more than one dude to make Metal Gear. And he has a whole team. And I think at the end of the day, his head got a little bit overblown, and he asked Konami for way more money than they were comfortable with. Now, to be fair, Konami does suck. They suck.
Oh, yeah.
They want to go in the pachinko. They didn't want to do video games for a while. And that was around the time he was asking them for more money than they've ever given anybody. So Phantom Pain is what we got. And aptly named. Kojima really is a genius. I'll give him that. So he goes off to make his games in Death Stranding, and it ends up being okay. Some people hate it. Some people love it. And that's because he, at the end of the day, he's just a dude. You know what I mean? So this whole controversy between Konami and Kojima, I felt like it was overblown. Konami does suck. I agree. But at the end of the day, like, if anything, the conversation should be more about what kind of credit do we give individual developers? What kind of credence do they get for making the games? How do we treat creatives? How much money is involved? You know, corporations suck, but did we expect them to be any better than they actually are? So I don't know.
Right.
It's a big mess. Mario Party 8. I don't know if you heard about this. They caught heat in the UK over an unfortunate choice of words. So Kamek, the little guy with the glasses that rides the broom or whatever, little wizard guy, he instructs one of the mini games. He tells players to turn the train spastic, make this ticket tragic. Spastic is considered an offensive word in UK. So it led to the title being recalled, and then the word changed to erratic. But again, like, the intent wasn't malicious. And yeah, slang is contextual, but I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know. It is what it is. It's a language thing. I see the argument for both sides, but I would never, like, I'm going to say the F word now, because I would never say the F word in context of the gay community. So I kind of get, like, the offense. But again, if it's in the context of a cigarette, you can rail against every Guy Ritchie movie if you want, but that's not what they're trying to do. There's right. No, so it is what it is. I think that about covers it for everything that I had. It was a big generation for controversy. So I guess we can move on to the 8th gen.
Yeah.
All right. What you got for 8th gen?
I don't have much. I've only got, I'm sure that there are many, many options, but the best ones that I could find, the ones I wanted to highlight. The first one is Overwatch. The controversy surrounding, there's a character, her name is Tracer. And
her booty?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dear God.
That booty.
Oh my God. She's standing with her back to the camera and her butt sticking out, and she's looking over her shoulder with a seductive smile. Who fucking cares?
Rule 34 cares.
True. But, like, this is not the first instance of a woman character being sexy in a video game. And it certainly won't be the last. Yes, objectification of women is a huge problem.
Was that why people were mad, because of objectification, do you think?
Yeah. That's
interesting.
From the things that I've read, they were upset because it was an overtly sexual pose. And to that I say, God forbid an attractive, I mean, yes, it's a video game character, but God forbid an attractive woman highlight her attractive features.
Yeah, because there's a fine line to walk here, right? Like, I feel like Overwatch came out at a time when there was the whole girl boss feminism movement, and there were good things that came out of that, like sex positivity, and there were bad things that came out of that, where they kind of went really hard on men. Yeah. Causing men to be the sad sacks that they are nowadays. Like, ooh, women. And it's just like, this whole gender war thing has to stop. You know, true feminism to me is about the equality of sexes and how we both suffer under, you know, patriarchy and all that. And again, that's a conversation for another time. But essentially, it's just, we can both have respect for each other and have the same opportunities. And that means having the opportunity to be sexy if you want to be sexy. So to me, with the time it came out in the context and women kind of being more sexually liberated, I thought it was just a celebration of her sexuality as agency for the character, and that people kind of stand for that. It didn't feel objectification-y to me, I guess, contextually. So I didn't even know that, like, people were still upset about her booty. I mean, I thought it was just talked about a lot because she's that ass don't quit. Oh my God. Yeah. 3 jobs. No. That ass is Jamaican. All the jobs.
But apparently it got people pissed enough that they changed her standard pose to not highlight her butt, because God forbid, it's absolutely ridiculous that a woman can't be tough and be sexy at the same time. Yeah. And also, it's a video game, as we've said before, as the whole purpose of this episode is, who friggin' cares if she's sexy? It's a video game. Whether or not she's got an ass that you could bounce a quarter off of has absolutely no play with the actual game itself.
Yeah, and there are people that, again, celebrate sexy characters, men and women, who can see the difference between, again, that character that just stands there with her tits hanging out, talking about, I'll give it to you for free, and someone like Bayonetta, right?
Yeah.
Bayonetta, I feel like, is a celebration of sexuality that, again, there could be some arguments on either side, but I feel like she totes the line and like really kind of owns it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's cool. Like, I am not going to lie. I enjoy the female form. You know what I mean? But I also, you know, in recent years, you know, since around 2010 with the whole Gamergate controversy, my eyes were open to the fact that like women didn't enjoy having all their agency taken away and literally just being objects. So I was like, okay, well then I can't appreciate anything sexy. And then later on I was like, no, you can. You just got to know the difference. And so I think people get really hung up, you know, because of the history of video games. Is this objectification? Is this just titillation for titillation's sake? Are we just advertising to young boys? And maybe, but depending on how you handle the character, and I feel like Overwatch is a good example. Apex Legends is another good example. There are sexy girls and boys for all persuasions in those games. And that's cool. I like that. It's okay for things to be sexy. It's okay to enjoy sex. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
the other honorable mention I had was Super Mario Odyssey.
Okay.
This had a little bit of controversy. It didn't last long, but it did happen.
Oh, the poncho?
The sombrero.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there was an advertisement for the game, and it might have also been the original draft of the first cover. There was a picture of Mario wearing a poncho and a sombrero, and there were groups. I don't know if they were Latin American groups. I couldn't find reliable information on that.
Definitely no shortage of white liberals caping for other people just to be outraged. Yeah.
Yes. There were people who got pissed that was cultural appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
To which I say, have you played the damn game?
Yeah.
He wears a sombrero in the game. It's just a reference to an item in the game. And God forbid someone else, like I wasn't aware that sombreros were only available to the Mexican American community.
Yeah. Well, again, there's an argument to be had about what a cultural appropriation is, right? It's the donning of another culture like a costume without understanding the history, respecting the history, or interacting with that community whatsoever. And when it comes to Mario Odyssey, like that whole level is themed after like actually culturally appropriate Mexican things. You know, you got the Jaguar, you got the Dia de los Muertos, and they do like cultural things for the what's the actual proper term for Eskimos? I feel bad not knowing this. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can't think of it either. All I can think of is
terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what I mean? Like there's other cultures that are celebrated they take inspiration. And I think inspiration and appropriation are two different things. And that's a conversation to be had. And I'm on your side with, and again, I can't speak from authority, but I didn't see anybody official being like this, you know what I mean? It's just like a general outcry of people who just want to controversy bait, rage bait, right?
Yep.
So, yeah.
So those are my honorable mentions. My number one pick.
Okay.
Is a game. I will be impressed if you heard of it. This was not my number one pick until I stumbled on it by accident.
Okay.
It is a game called My Name is Mayo.
My Name is Mayo.
Yeah.
Vaguely familiar, but I don't think I know it.
My Name is Mayo is an independent game. It's available on all of the consoles of the generation, as far as I could tell.
Okay.
It's only 99 cents. It's a very cheap game.
Okay.
You can beat the game and you can platinum the game in less than an hour. Even as fast as a half hour if you really, really try.
Okay.
And that's the controversy.
It's just free platinum. Yeah.
A bunch of I'm a real gamer, get good types got really, really pissed that the game is basically a trophy farm and an easy plat.
That's already been fixed though. Like the way that PlayStation fixed that is they assign rarity. Like if a certain percent, I think Xbox does this too, a certain percentage of players get that platinum, then that rarity lessens. So yeah, you can say you have so many platinums, but you actually get like a ranking and a point system and a leveling system for the rarity of the trophies that you have. So why are people crying about, like, again, non-controversy?
Exactly. That's, and when I was looking at it, I mean, I don't have the game. It wouldn't be anything that I would be interested in. But if someone wants an easy platinum, who gives a shit?
I did that. God, back in the 360 era, I rented King Kong because it was easy plat. There was an Avatar game where you could get the 100% achievements in like 5 minutes because you just got to do all the combos. I played it. I literally played it for 5 minutes, got it, and never played it again. I totally did that stuff because I was addicted to seeing that number go up. And you know,
I've done it too.
Judge me.
Donut County, The Last Campfire. Both of those are mindlessly easy. I mean, Last Campfire is completely unavoidable to get the platinum.
Donut County's so good though.
Oh yeah, Donut County's a lovely game, and Last Campfire is a beautiful game too. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's just that every trophy in it is story driven, so it is virtually impossible to miss the platinum.
Yeah.
But that's through no fault of no fault of your own. No, it's no slight on the game's design. It's just how they decided to set up the trophies. So, God forbid someone just wants to buff up their trophy stats.
Yeah, get that big E-peen. Check out my E-peen. It's big. It's bigger than yours.
Right.
Just gonna slam it on the table for you. All right. Well, I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I will try to go through these quickly. Devotion. Taiwanese developers made Devotion. It was removed from Steam because the Chinese publishers were mad about Xi Jinping and the jokes that were made at his expense in the game. The old meme about how Xi Jinping looks like Winnie the Pooh. He hates that. I think the game also called him a moron, like one of the characters did. So that was a non-controversy. Again, like, if a political figure is mad because you're criticizing him in a game, I know this is a very American sentiment, but I don't care. I mean, fuck off. Like, you're not God. You're an appointed official, in some cases more appointed and in other cases more coerced, but still, it is what it is.
Yep.
2021, this is recent, Illinois State Representative Marcus Evans proposed banning Grand Theft Auto because he believes it contributes to carjackings in Chicago.
I remember seeing that story.
Evans got carjacked. And he got pissed. And he was like, I'm going to ban the sale of Grand Theft Auto in Illinois because these are getting the minds of our young people and perpetuating the normacy of carjacking. It's not normal. It's got to stop. Dude. Dude.
Yeah.
Shut up. Can you imagine the amount of games out there and if they actually influenced people the way that people said that they did? The amount of mayhem and murder and perfect placing of furniture and a tetrimo effect would happen. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah. If games were that influential to life and caused that much, the violence and the crimes and everything that happened in games translated to real life actions, the world would make Saints Row look like Winnie the Pooh.
I mean, everybody who played Cooking Mama would become Gordon Ramsay. It'd be amazing and terrible all at the same time. Speaking of Cooking Mama, Cookstar. You ever heard about the Nintendo Switch version of Cooking Mama Cookstar?
Yes. Yeah.
Accused of covertly using the Switch to mine large amounts of Bitcoin. It was debunked. It didn't happen. It was just poorly optimized. It overclocked the Switch a bit. It is what it is. It was quickly taken off sale on all platforms, so that added to the conspiracy. But that was because they didn't actually have the Cooking Mama license at the time. So it was removed shortly for a legal dispute and then brought back. It's fine. Everything's fine. No crypto was farmed on your Switch. It's okay. Epic Games versus Apple. Taking Apple to task for 30% cut on all sales and microtransactions in the App Store. I think this is a legit cause, but the thing that rubbed me the wrong way, and that was like a non-controversy, was Epic, this giant corporation. Epic was positioning itself as the hero of the people, fighting back against the tyranny of the App Store and Google Play. And it's just like, Epic is shady in its own right. Don't get a corporation trying to get to you to cape for it while it fights other corporations is gross.
Yeah, that was the biggest. That was the most. The charges aside that they were accusing of, like you said, it was the most fraudulent. We're the heroes fight, and to watch people on social media divide themselves into, well, actually, Apple, and Epic, like, you are trying to stick up for a multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation. Neither one of these two see you as anything other than an ATM.
Exactly.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I myself, I enjoy a boot-free diet, and I suggest y'all do the same. Mortal Kombat 11. If you beat the story mode with Jax, he goes on to use a time travel machine to go to the past and stop the transatlantic slave trade from happening. Cool. Unfortunately, a small minority of MK players got very upset and claimed this was the equivalent to racism against white people because Jax stopped the transatlantic slave trade.
I feel like I need to go sit in a corner for a minute.
Just, what is wrong with our people? I don't understand how the advocation of just treating people like normal human beings or equal rights is somehow a threat. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't even I would go so far as to say I don't understand racism against a majority group, like how that can actually affect you in a vacuum. But then to say that like the advocation for the rights of others is racism against the majority group, get the fuck out of here. So non-controversy.
Absolutely.
Puddlegate. Remember that? Spider-Man?
Oh God, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, I'm going to end it with this. Puddle fucking gate, bro. Spider-Man had pre-release shots, allegedly a graphical downgrade when two images were compared of the same puddle of the same puddle of water were circulating. The more recent image showing less water on the ground, and then Insomniac having to actually come out and explain that it's made smaller. There's no downgrade. We just changed the size of the puddle. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's no graphical calm down. People were all over these screenshots, dude. They were like, reducing the graphics to trying to bait and switch. Now, to be fair, games have pulled graphical bait and switch bullshit in the past, right? It has happened. Right? Jesus, dude. But Spider-Man was no such case, and people obsessing over that puddle need to get a life. So,
right. Never mind the fact that Spider-Man was a beautiful game.
Phenomenal.
So if you're looking at that game and you're getting upset about the fact that a puddle is slightly smaller than it used to be, and interpreting
I need
that
you
as
to
a
touch grass. I need you to touch actual puddles.
Yeah.
That's what I need you to do. Woo! We might have pissed some people off with this episode. I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe the right people, though. I don't know.
I'm sure this won't be the last episode where we have hot takes, though. So
yeah, spicy. The spicy hot take that people should be okay with us not having the transatlantic slave trade. What the fuck is this timeline? What the fuck is this timeline, Jed?
That one, dear God, I really feel like I need to just sit at a window and stare at nothing for that one. That one is so... How?
I don't know, man. I don't know.
How?
I don't know. People are in bubbles, and it's sad. All right, folks. That is going to be it for the Controversies, Not Controversies. Jed, did you have an idea of what we're going to do next, or we're making it a surprise?
Oh, no, I've got an idea.
Okay.
I messaged you earlier.
No,
this
I remember
week
you sending me a message. Yeah. I didn't know if that was concrete or not. I didn't want to set you up.
No, that's locked in.
Okay.
So I had a delicious idea. This is not on our, and to go a little inside baseball, we do have a master list of a bunch of ideas that we're, eventually going to get to. But we also, Mike comes up with an idea out of the blue. We do it.
Yeah,
I come up with an idea out of the blue.
Yeah.
I came up with an idea out of the blue. It's another holiday themed episode, but it's a holiday themed episode with a twist.
Oh, okay.
So as of the time that we're recording this, it is the weekend of January 28th. So whenever you listen to this, it's probably going to be a little, very early February.
Mm-hmm.
So the next episode should be somewhere floating around Valentine's Day.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Sort of.
Okay. Twist.
So, in honor of Valentine's Day, I thought that we should do something themed around the concept of romance and love.
Oh.
Except for the fact that that's really easy to go, what are the cutest couples in video games? Cloud and Tifa, hee hee hee. No.
I'd shoot that idea down for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Way too easy. This is not the show for that.
Yeah.
We're going in the opposite direction.
Oh, dear.
We are going for the worst romances in video games. the relationships that make you sick, that you find annoying, the relationships that are the most problematic or troublesome.
Oh my goodness. The bad romance. That's good stuff. I like that. Man, I haven't even thought about that. Jeez. There definitely probably are some toxic relationships that we could go back to. My goodness. Oh, yeah. Wow.
I've already developed a preliminary list because I've had this idea for about 5-6 days now.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to be looking for more, but video game history's definitely got some problematic, toxic, and otherwise just irritating romances, and it's full of them. Especially the more recent generations with the more story-driven games.
Yeah.
But even still, there's some back in the day where you're going to go, wow. We had problems back then.
Fair enough. All right. First Gen Gamers Love Stinks Edition coming up next. I thought you were going to go a different route. I thought you were going to go like the best games to play with your sweetie on Valentine's, like a co-op list, you know?
Yeah.
That might be something for later. We can shelve that. But no, this is interesting. I like this. All right, folks. Well, again, if we pissed you off, if we said anything you agree with, if we missed anything, you know where to contact us. Get in those show notes, check out the link tree, send an email, hit us up on the socials if you want. Let us know what you're thinking, because that does make it into the show. We check those periodically. I think I check X most because that's what I'm on, typically looking for like video game deals. I know you're on Blue Sky.
Yep.
We got that email. You monitoring that email? Have you looked at it recently?
I am. No one has written in yet.
Okay.
Waiting for that first email.
All right. Fair enough. Well, we are a small show and we are, lightly promoted. So no big deal. I'm having fun. But folks, if you enjoy it, like I said, any feedback, we will definitely take to heart and bring to the show. We are very interested in fostering that community of people who are like-minded and want to talk about video game history. So,
yeah. And if you can help us out with spreading the news about the show, rate it on your platform of choice, leave a review. I know every podcaster and YouTuber in the world says it, but it really does help with algorithms. It really does help us.
That's how algorithms work, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumb sideways, 1 star, 5 stars, share, don't share, comment, anything you do to interact with the show, even if you're shitting on it, we appreciate it. It helps us out. So feel free to do what you need to do. But yeah, thanks for coming out, y'all. That is going to be the show today. Jed, you want to sign us out?
Until next time, everyone.
All right. Take care.